What's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA, here with the random rant. And yeah, news just dropped about my guy right here, the Daredevil. Let's go ahead and pull this up. Bang. And then we're going to check this article out. Bam. Daredevil reboot reportedly set to begin production as Disney Plus MCU series. All right, so this news has been just dropped a little bit ago, and already the internet is just buzzing about. Everybody's talking about, wait a minute, what's happening here? Okay, it's a reboot. What are we going to be getting? Is it a listen, nobody knows yet. Nobody knows yet. And I like that this article jumps into that. If you remember when the MCU shows were first announced to come over to Netflix, and there was going to be the whole parent code and everything, I did a little video about that. I'll go ahead and link that up there so you can check that video out. But my initial thoughts was, okay, what is it going to be? Is it MCU? Is it not MCU? What I personally wanted, and I said that in the video, was that it just kind of sit on the side a little bit. Like, okay, it's kind of the same thing that it was when it was on Netflix. It's its own thing. It's its own series. It just kind of sits on the side. It's not necessarily connected directly to the MCU, but it's there, you know. And then, okay, yeah, if you want to bring a character or two over, like they did in No Way Home, like they did with this Echo, or excuse me, like they did with Hawkeye, and then apparently with Echo, with the upcoming Echo series, if you just want to bring over a couple of characters and just have them interact, I don't really have a problem with that, but keep it as its own separate thing. That's personally what I wanted. But it doesn't look like they're going to do that. So let's go ahead and read through this article and just kind of get an idea of what's happening. So it says here, a Daredevil reboot is reportedly set to enter production and will apparently be a Disney Plus MCU series. So they're talking about, they looked at Production Weekly and they saw that there was a show simply referred to as the Daredevil reboot. The show is listed as a Disney Plus series currently in development. So they kind of go into that a little bit. Now, here's the part that I was most interested in discussing, and it says here that one major question is, what kind of reboot would this be? Should it become a finished product? It didn't really say, right? It's just, well, it's a Disney or Daredevil reboot. And it goes on to say, well, with that in mind, this could be more of a reboot in the sense of firmly tying the show into the current Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I take from that it could be, well, okay, we got, you know, a character that's kind of out there, and they kind of referenced, you know, the incident or the event, you know, referring to the first Avengers. And they could just say, okay, let's kind of just stitch some things together. Let's kind of make some connections so that it feels like, okay, this is definitely a part of the MCU, and let's just keep going with that. That wouldn't be so bad, you know. It's like, okay, it's not really a reboot. They're just kind of retconning a couple of things, maybe adding a couple of pieces so that everybody can say, yeah, all the connections have been made. They kind of already done that with the Kingpin and with Charlie Cox, or excuse me, Matt Murdock showing up in No Way Home. So they've kind of done that a little bit, and maybe they can do a couple of things more to make that happen. That wouldn't be a bad thing. Now, what would be bad, it says here, ultimately, with the multiverse now firmly in play, it's possible this could be more of a drastic reboot, altering the character's backstory in some way. It says here, it feels as though there's a strong possibility the character will appear in the Echo spinoff series. And again, that's not a bad thing. You know, he could make a pop-up here and there, one, you know, episode, you know, hanging out, talking, and then boom, he's done. Okay, that's fine. Having his story woven directly into the Echo series, I'm not sure I'm with that. Okay, and again, I just wanted it to kind of sit on the side, and I felt like that's what this should be. These are street heroes. You have this little Defenders universe of its own, and they just deal with the problems in New York. That's all it needed to do. And if, you know, Echo is going to be a part of that, now that's one thing. If you're going to just say, hey, Echo, you're over here now in this one, you're not really a part of Hawkeye. We introduced you there, but you're not really a part of that overall universe. Okay, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. We got Echo. She's going to be over here in the Defenders universe doing her own thing there, and we're going to have, you know, all of these other guys. Yeah, that's fine. I think what Marvel has to be careful with when they talk about bringing this show, Daredevil and all of these other shows, into the MCU, you have to be careful with understanding why the fans like the show in the first place, okay? And it's not just the character, it's not just the actor, it's the tone of the show. Like, And I think sometimes, like, folks in Hollywood, they miss that because everybody's talking about how much they love Charlie Cox or how much they love Vincent D'Onofrio, and they're forgetting that it's the world in which this character or these characters are operating. It's just as important, maybe even more important than the actors themselves. Not to say that the actors aren't important, but it's just as important to make sure that the world that we fell in love with these particular characters stays intact. You can't go flipping around like, okay, we're just going to make this like kind of a toned down version of that world. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that too. So you saw in Daredevil season 1, and if you haven't seen it, you know, go watch it because this is about to be a spoiler, a slight spoiler. But in that season, the Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio's character, decapitates a guy's head with a car door. Okay, think about that for a minute. You tone this down and you're not going to see that level of violence, right? Or if you do see that level of violence, it's going to be done off screen. If that did happen, you're just going to hear about it. You're not going to see it, okay? Now that changes things drastically for the fans. You know, even though it says, well, we still have some violence, we still have a little bit of, you know, fighting and maybe a little bit of blood here and there. Yeah, but we're not going to see that. And that's the kind of world where anything's possible, right? It's kind of like the Game of Thrones where anybody can die. Any level of violence is acceptable. You never know what you're gonna watch. You're sitting there, you know, your hands are gripping the couch cushions and you're wondering like, okay, is this gonna be the next guy that gets his head lopped off with a car door? We don't know. So you're never gonna see that if you tone it down, and that drastically changes the environment in which these characters are playing in. Okay, so that's something that I think these, you know, executives and everybody that are making these decisions, they have to intelligently, and I'm sure they do, they have to intelligently embrace that. They have to understand, okay, this is important, just as important as Charlie Cox, just as important as Vincent D'Onofrio, you know, to make sure that the world that these characters are coming into, it matches what the fans liked in the first place. Because a lot of fans said, hey, I like the gritty, raw, like unrestrained, no holds barred version of Daredevil. I like that. That's what I enjoyed about it, okay? Different than other comic book shows at that time. Now we got the Peacemaker, we got the Boys, we got Invincible, we got a lot of different shows that just go all out. But I think if you're going to do that with Daredevil, then you got to do it. You just got to, you know, just embrace it and go for it. So those are just my thoughts. Real quick, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and drop down, give me a subscribe. I definitely would appreciate it. And let me know what your thoughts are on this Daredevil show. Do you like it just coming in any old kind of way? You're just happy to have it back? Or are you like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to like this if they change a lot of this away from what made the show good in the first place? All right. I want to thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.